Welcome in, belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I am your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you, who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 134, our Week 14's 2-point conversation. And it is my great pleasure to welcome back to the bar Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
Oh, surviving like a dynasty team in rebuild mode, bud. It's always next year.
There's always the future. You got to start preparing for the future today. All right, guys. So in this show, we have another full episode for you today, as we will start off with some player news and notes. We'll go through the studs and duds for Week 14. Oh, man, this list is long in the good way. And we'll also settle in our nice Week's 14 2-point conversation, where we go through all I'll go through all the action of Week 14 up to this point. But before we do any of that, let's make sure that everybody is in the room. Wingmen assemble! All right, now that everyone is here, let's get into some news and notes. Starting off with players that missed today's game that were inactive. Some were a little surprised and some were late scratches, as Breece Hall was inactive for the Jets matchup against the Dolphins. Keon Coleman was also inactive again. He's been questionable for like 4 weeks. He's inactive again for the Bills matchup against the Rams. Kenneth Walker, Texas, where are ya, was inactive this Sunday against the Cardinals in a huge matchup to see who might take the top of the NFC West division. And George Pickens was hoping to play, like we said on the Sunday morning quickie. He was going to warm up with the hope to try and play, but he definitely had to go through that warm up and see how his hamstring responded. Did not respond well, and he too was inactive for Week 14. All right, what do you have on these players who did not play today? Some of these are pretty big name players and starters in most people's fantasy lineups. Breece Hall, Keon Coleman, Kenneth Walker, and George Pickens.
Oh yeah. So Breece Hall, Braylon Allen did okay. So it's too bad though. They could have had a better go against the Dolphins if Breece Hall was in, because the Dolphins I thought was going to be a better run stop, but they didn't really show up for that run stop as much as they could have. Keon Coleman, you know who was appreciative of Keon Coleman not being in?
Khalil Shakir.
That's exactly right. He had a game. So Coleman, I wouldn't be too worried about that. There's plenty of assets on that team that Josh Allen will help or go ahead and get the touchdowns himself. Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet had a career day. I really needed Kenneth Walker to have his career day, but Charbonnet took care of business there. So there's probably not a huge concern there going forward if Kenneth Walker misses more time. And Pickens. I don't know what to think about Pickens, honestly. Freiermuth had a good game, had a decent game. Who's that guy? Mike Williams, he was in there sprinkled in a little bit. So Pickens, they probably are okay. They did play the Browns, so it wasn't really a test of what they needed to do. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Pickens yet.
All right, now for other players who did make it into the lineup to start the day but did not finish the game on the field. Starting off with superstar running back, the superstore himself, Bucky Irving, left the game early on Sunday, appearing, in my opinion, to aggravate his hip injury, although the team's official statement is that his lack of playing time was merely precautionary and Irving did not suffer any setback to any previous injuries. Aiden O'Connell, quarterback for the Raiders, did not play particularly well when he was on the field, but he did not finish the game on Sunday, as he may have suffered a potentially significant knee injury. And Derek Carr broke his non-throwing hand on his way down from a Superman dive, trying to extend the ball towards the first down marker on the sideline earlier in the game. What do you have on these three players who started but did not? Actually, I'm going to add one more here that's not on the list. I apologize.
No,
Jonathan Brooks looked like he was going to get sprinkled in with some work for the Carolina Panthers with Chuba Hubbard, but he went down with a non-contact injury. not that the injury itself looked bad because they're usually just kind of minor looking things and the guys just sit down. He looked like he was distraught. This is not good. He just came back from, I believe it was an ACL injury, and I don't know which knee it was, but it's either he looked like a knee injury again. I'm not sure if it's the same knee or not. So what do you have on these guys who started but did not finish? Bucky Irving, Aiden O'Connell, Derek Carr, and the curveball Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, so Bucky Irving, before leaving, he had minimal production. He just had 4 carries with 3 yards. He did have a big game last week. And then just for comparison, Rachaad White, he had a strong showing with 17 carries for 90 yards, and Sean Tucker had 3 carries for 47 yards. So there's some people there to help out. Bucky Irving will be missed, but not, and they won't be losing games because he's out, if he's out for an extended period of time. So the status, obviously you got to monitor that. Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder is the backup. So with Aiden O'Connor, if the severity is significant, then I would be very worried for Brock Bowers. I'd be very worried for Jacoby. The only thing Desmond does is he brings a little bit of running game to the table in the red zone. Derek Carr did not need to be doing what he was doing. He's got plenty of playmakers on his team. Just give the ball to Kamara. He will take care of the dirty work. So hopefully it'll be okay. But he's definitely got Spencer Rattler warming up in the back there. And then Garendo. Oh, did we get to Garendo yet?
No, Jonathan Brooks, the curveball. I'm sorry about that. Yeah,
that's okay. Actually, I didn't watch that game. So, what do you have? Anything further on Brooks?
Yeah, well, I was watching them. I didn't have like the numbers of the split carries, but it seemed like they were pretty split by that time. It was early in the game, either late first quarter, maybe early second quarter. It wasn't much farther along than that. And he got I don't know if it was a pitch or not, but it seemed like he was running to the outside, like just the left. And before anyone even came to him, he took like 3 steps and he just kind of sat down. Like he just and you could almost see in the replay, you can kind of see that little ripple on Achilles. Yeah. You kind of saw potentially, it's hard to tell with fabric and stuff. Yeah. It felt like you might have saw a little ripple, not by his ankle, but maybe more towards between his thigh and his calf. So maybe it was a ligament by the knee.
You know it's bad. Just like McCaffrey just kind of slid down. You kind of know. Hey,
it was the very same thing. He took 2 or 3 steps, had one slow step, and just sat down.
Yep. Too bad.
So what else am I going to say about the guys here? The Tampa Bay backfield, they've got 3 quality guys. They sprinkle them in, they mix them up nicely. Bucky Irving was starting to get some more work because he's been so effective. But don't forget, Rachaad White was a top 5 running back last year in terms of fantasy, and he picked up the slack quite well today. Yep. All right, now on to other players here. Isaac Garendo, our highest price waiver wire acquisition this week, came through with a monster game, but if you weren't paying attention because the game kind of got out of hand by the end, he walked off the field in the fourth quarter with trainers by his side heading to the locker room. He appeared to sustain a foot injury. The latest report I saw was that they assume he has a sprained foot, but an MRI is going to be needed to determine the severity of that injury. Let's just stop right here because this was a big-time player with big-time fantasy playoffs and even NFL playoffs potential here to save fantasy managers and the San Francisco 49ers going forward. What do you have on Garendo's performance and potentially his injury and the severity of it?
Yeah, so it doesn't look good, but it's the 49ers, so you really can't take anything that they say seriously until it's actually serious. So he had an impressive showing though. So how much did Mac Daddy 2 spend on him? $94?
94.
So $94 bought you 128 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns. So not bad if that is the difference in your win there. So McCaffrey's out, Mason's out, Elijah Mitchell's out. Now Garendo's possibly out. Knee, ankle, hamstring, foot. Jesus. Okay, so looking ahead. 49ers play the Rams on Thursday, so they got limited recovery time.
Right.
Patrick Taylor played today. There's Keyshawn Vaughn and Israel Abanaconda. I never had to say his name.
Close. Yeah.
So those are the guys to circle on that waiver wire, star on that waiver wire. Just keep a lookout for the news and see what's going on there. It's a sad day though for Garendo because it looked like he had a lot of promise.
Yeah, he was a monster today. Lad McConkey, who is dealing with multiple ailments from his shoulders to his knees, he was hopeful to be available for the Sunday night game, but he's so banged up, and he's such a trooper trying to get through it. But at a certain point, it's just too much. We mentioned on that Sunday morning quickie that they were hoping he would play, but that it was definitely not a guarantee to have a backup plan ready in case he was inactive. And if you went to wingmanfantasyfootball.com, you could have checked those inactive lists and see that he was out around that 7:05 mark or so. Unfortunately, some managers didn't get the news there and left inactive player in their lineup. Real quick here, like I said, we're short on news today, so we'll just do this one at a time to finish off here. What do you have on Lad McConkey here? Did you expect him to play, or was it just kind of a wait and see? Because he's been banged up for multiple weeks, but this week he was getting limited practices at best.
Yeah, it was a wait and see. But he's a rookie, so maybe the conditioning wasn't where it needed to be for him to be able to get back on the field. They are, full disclosure now, they are playing right now, and they don't have any points. And it's third quarter, so I know that Stonehands. What's Stonehands' name? Quentin Johnson. Don't throw it to Stonehands.
Don't throw it to Stonehands.
He actually had a really good catch in this game already in the second quarter, I believe. So they've got the weapons, but it doesn't look like they're doing anything with them. But doesn't really matter right now. So
I would say fantasy wise, McConkey's been he's been decent all year, but it's definitely getting more. Like, he's been really good the last 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely would have waited to. I wouldn't have purposely put in like a backup for him in those 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games. Mm-hmm. But I also would have definitely tried to have considered all of my backup options from the 8 o'clock game going forward, and then kind of make an assessment that way. If you didn't like your pivots, maybe play the 4 o'clock guys. But I would have waited to see. But once you find out, you got to have that on your radar. Like, that is not a guarantee that he's going to play today, and have a backup plan ready to go.
Right. Oh yeah.
All right. On to our next and last. This might be a little cathartic and fun for some of our listeners out there. The New York Jets, with their overtime loss today against the Dolphins in what was a thriller of a game, unnecessarily so, but on Sunday, have now officially been eliminated from the NFL playoffs. Now the question is, are they going to shut down Aaron Rodgers, send him off to the moon, or is Breece Hall going to get back on the field? These are all questions inquiring minds want to know. What do you have on the Jets being officially, mathematically, with all that kind of stuff, eliminated from the NFL playoffs?
All right, football fans. All right, listeners out there, everybody with me now. Jets suck.
Oh man, we'll do that one more time slower, because we know people want to join in. Do it one more time,
right,
a little slower.
1, 2, 3. Jets
suck. If you're a Jets fan out there, we appreciate you listening. Hit that like and subscribe button. We're just having fun.
Actually, if there is a Jet fan out there, we really do want to know, because I know we've got a New England fan, and I know we got a Buffalo fan, and we have a ton of Dolphin fans, and we're missing that one key element to the bottom of the AFC East, the Jet fan. So if you're out there, leave us a comment that you are a Jet fan. That'd be great.
I thought you were going to say bottom of the barrel, the Jet fans, but bottom of the AFC East. Okay, I got you.
That's not too far from the bottom of the
barrel.
Fair
enough. You're right. No, I just didn't know where you're going. We've already did the Jets suck. So all right, okay. All right, guys. This week had some major performances. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
This week had some major performances. So now it is time to take a look at some of our studs and duds.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Wingman Fantasy Football, studs and duds.
All right, Mr. Bernie, why don't you start us off with some of our studs for Week 14?
All right, at the top of this list, Baker the Babymaker Mayfield at 25 fantasy points, 295 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 12 rushing yards. Love it, Baker. Love it. Jalen Hurts, 24.22, stealing touchdowns again, 108 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 59 rushing yards, and 1 stolen rushing touchdown from Saquon Barkley. And next up on this list, Mr. MVP himself, Jared Goff. Jared Goff, 24.02 points, 283 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 7 rushing yards. And then, look at this guy taking over where Bucky left off. Rashad White, 23.9 fantasy points, only 99 total yards. That's okay. Almost hit that century mark. 2 receptions and 2 touchdowns.
So I do want to mention real quick, Jalen Hurts had that Anthony Richardson line from last week, only 108 passing yards, but he had 3 touchdowns with a combination of rushing and passing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pardon me. All right, so other players on our stud list this week, Tyreek Hill had 23.1 points as he had 121 total yards on 10 receptions, and he scored a touchdown today. And Kyren Williams
Release the Kraken.
had 22.7 points on 97 total yards, 2 receptions, and he got in the end zone twice. And, oh, man, Devontae Adams had 21.4 points. He's actually looking pretty good the last 2 weeks, I'm not going to lie. He had 109 receiving yards with 9 catches. And where are we here? And 1 touchdown. And James Conner, the only good thing going for the Cardinals today, had 20.2 points on 122 total yards, 4 receptions, and he, too, got in the end zone.
Yeah, what happened to the Cardinals, man? Did they just fall off the map here? Whew. Next up, Jalen McMillan. Ooh, I haven't said his name before. Is he a rookie? 19.9 fantasy points, 59 receiving yards, 4 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Oh, look at this lion on this list. Tim Patrick taking Jameis touchdowns. Thanks for nothing. 19.3 points, 43 receiving yards, 6 receptions, and 2 receiving touchdowns for Mr. Patrick. Khalil Shakir, man on fire. This guy, 19.1 points, 106 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and 1 touchdown in the Buffalo loss. And Mike's favorite player, Mr. Bijan Robinson, 19.1.
Would you have any Grey Poupon?
I wasn't sure. I was watching that. I wasn't sure we were going to. Okay. Yeah.
That's all right. We'll get this, guys. Don't worry.
Yep.
Next season, we're going to be on point. 19.1 points for Bijan. 101 total receiving yards, 2 receptions, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 2-point conversion. And Tyler Algier did have a rushing touchdown that he stole from Bijan.
Oh, yeah. Early, I saw that. I was starting to get angry when I the first drive because I think he had 1 carry at that point for the touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah. So here's the trick here. When you say the great Bijan, then that's why I know it's the Grey Poupon.
Okay. Gotcha.
So let's try one more time.
All right. Next up on this list, the great Bijan.
Pardon me. Would you have any Grey Poupon?
There we go.
Robinson,
we got it.
19.1 points. All right, next time we got it.
That's the sound trigger for me. When I hear great, I know we're doing the one-to-one sound alike. All right.
Gotcha.
All right, another player on this list, Chuba Hubbard. Man, that is some good bubble gum right there. He had 18.7 points at 107 total yards, 4 receptions, and a touchdown. In full disclosure, one of our managers in our league asked me a question directly. Should I play Hubbard or Harrison? And I said, stay away from Hubbard in the Eagles matchup. And I don't know if it would have been the right call or not overall. But with that Jonathan Brooks injury, it was all Chuba Hubbard from the second quarter on, and he delivered with a fine game. And once again, we'll wait to the 2-point conversation here. But once again, the Carolina Panthers are hanging tough with some high-powered teams, top of the league teams that are right there with them to the end. All right, sorry about that. Rome Odunze had 18.2 points with only 42 receiving yards, only 4 catches, but he had 2 of those catches get him in the end zone. And just the opposite, same amount of points, but a different way to do it. George Kittle at 18.1 points had 151 receiving yards on 6 catches, and he didn't even get in the end zone. Big day for Kittle. Cooper Kupp had 17.7 points, 92 receiving yards, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown pinned against his leg as he's fallen down to the ground.
Unbelievable. And look at this guy. He's been on my bench for so long, and then I put him in today, and he delivered. Darnell Mooney, 17.2 points, 142 receiving yards, and only on 6 receptions. Great job, Mooney. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. JSN, 17.1 points, 86 total yards, 5 receptions, and 1 receiving touchdown. And our first kicker, Anders Carlson, that's right, the brother, 16 total fantasy points with 4 field goals and 2 point after. And one more, Jason Sanders, 16 fantasy points, got us into overtime with a big leg, 4 field goals, one with 2 50-yard plus field goals.
That one doesn't need to be there, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. 4 field goals, 2 of those were 50-plus yards, and one of them got us into the overtime.
Sorry about that misprint there. All
No,
right, why
you're
don't you
good.
start off with some of these guys who did not do as well? Like, again, there has to be a yin and a yang. The opposite of our studs are our duds. Who made our dud list for week 14?
All right. One of these things is not like the other. Figure out which one it is. Aiden O'Connell, 10.76 points. We all know why he got hurt. Mac Jones, 9.1 points. We all know why he shouldn't be a starter. Will Levis, 7.02 points. We all know why he was my start of the week. And then DK Metcalf, 6.9 points. One of these things is not like the other.
Yep. One guy should be good. The other guys we don't expect to be good. All right. Now, after that question I mentioned before, Marvin Harrison or Chuba Hubbard, he did not listen to me, and that was good for him, as the one player he picked was a stud, and the player I suggested was the dud, Marvin Harrison Jr. at only 6.9 points. Unfortunately, Brock Bowers could not get on a roll today. He only had 6.7 points. AJ Brown, we're going to talk about him later, I know, had only 6.3 points. And Wan'Dale Robinson, not sure if he even deserves to be on this list anymore. He only had 5.8 points for the Giants.
Yeah, that was quite a run of receivers. Metcalf, Harrison, Bowers, and Brown and the dud list. That's rough. All right, next up. Xavier Legette, 4.9 points. It was a tough going for him. He got a couple big hits that I saw. Elijah Moore, 4.9 points. Nick Chubb. There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to say it because I'm so sad. 4.8 points for Nick Chubb. And Keenan Allen. Hit it, Mike.
Hey.
4.5 points for Keenan.
All right, other players on the dud list this week. Deebo Samuel was a little more involved, but just as unproductive, getting only 4.5 points today. DeAndre Swift also at 4.5 points. And James Cook was the only Buffalo Bill not to do anything today at 3.9 points. And Parker Washington was picked up by a lot of players, managers off the waiver wire this week. Some put him in their lineup, and I hope many didn't. Others didn't, as he only had 2.5 points this week.
And then, a guy that I thought Will Levis was going to get the touchdowns with, Nick Westbrook and Keenye, 2.4 points. Bucky Irving, we all know what happened there, 2.3 points. Kyle Stinky Pitts, 1.9 points. And then two gooses for Mike to enter into the Goosemeter. Jaden Reed and Tyler Lockett.
All right, guys. Yeah, now it is time. It is time to get into our Mecha. This is the longest list I think I've ever had for Mecha Studs, so hold on tight. It's time to check out our Mecha Studs.
Mega Studs.
All right, our Mecha Studs for week 14. Oh my gosh, I think this is the highest scoring player of the entire year so far. Josh Allen poured it on in the second half. He was so pedestrian, a regular day in the first half, and then just scored every time down the field. Josh Allen had 51.88 points. He got there by getting 342 passing yards, 82 rushing yards. He threw 3 touchdowns and rushed in 3 others. He was responsible for 6 touchdowns all by himself. Our next one on this list is Puka Nacua. I should have traded for this guy when he was on the IR. I could have got him earlier, maybe. This guy is so awesome. He just dives and catches, hits the ground so hard, never drops the ball out. The ball never gets dislodged. I don't know how, because he hits the ground so hard, but he had 35.8 points on 178 total yards, 12 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, who was actually played this week in one of our managers' starting lineups, way to go Lionized, had 35.3 points. Jordan Addison. Wow. This is the fastest I've seen him go since he was on some sort of highway going over the speed limit. 133 receiving yards, 8 catches, and 3 touchdowns. Oh my gosh. This is like a fine wine unless you're the Kenneth Walker manager here. Zach Charbonnet had 34.8 points. We're going to talk about this in the 2-point conversation. I'm holding it as long as I can here. 34.8 points for Zach Charbonnet, 193 total yards, 7 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold, 34.58 points. He got there with 347 passing yards, 7 rushing yards, and 5 passing touchdowns. Justin Jefferson got some of that work there. Oh, look at this. So we had Sam Darnold in there, and we have 2 receivers, all Mecha Studs. The Vikings passing game was nuclear today. Justin Jefferson at 28.7 points. He got there with 132 receiving yards, 7 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Isaac Guerrero, 25.8 points. Did a lot of work today, even though he left the game a little early. 128 total yards, 2 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs got the week started off on Thursday. We almost forgot about him. 24.6 points on 66 rushing yards, but he had 3 touchdowns. And Juwan Jennings, I love this guy. He's so fun to watch, actually. 24.5 points, 90 receiving yards on 7 catches and 2 touchdowns. All right. We'll talk about some of these guys in their games. We'll save them for the 2-point conversation, but some big scores this week.
Oh, yeah.
So I know we had Jamar Chase at like 49.9 points, and I think someone else had 48, maybe Mixon, or maybe someone else had like a 40-some-odd point game, but breaking the 50.
Mixon. Yeah.
I'm glad it happened this week and not last week. That would have destroyed my season if it happened last week. All right, guys. It is now time to get into this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Link?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Green Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, before we get into the games, the theme for this weekend's action were big fantasy scores mixed in with some gooses and a win or go home mentality in many leagues around the fantasy football landscape. What do you have for this week's 2-point conversation?
All right, so let's start off with Thursday's game. Great game, great team. The Detroit Lions defeated the Green Bay Packers 34-31 on a last-second field goal, clinching a playoff spot and extending their franchise record winning streak to 11 games.
You don't realize it, but the Lions have to keep winning because, well, Green Bay, they beat them, which helped out in terms of getting an extra game up and a tiebreaker. But Minnesota quietly is right behind them. They're what, 10-2 now, or they only have 2 losses, whatever that win total is. And the Lions still have 1, and they play each other at least one more time. I think they only play each other one more time. I could be mistaken on that part. So it's also the last game of the season. So the Detroit Lions, in years past, those teams on the top get to relax those last 2 weeks. They're going to have to play this thing all the way out, which is great for fantasy football managers to have these high-powered offenses playing it all the way to the end. I kind of forget some of this game. If I recall, I thought that Green Bay scored the tying touchdown with like a minute or so left to go, and I thought it was going to go overtime, and then then Detroit hit the game-winning field goal at the buzzer. They actually scored they got the ball with less than a minute to go and got the game-winning field goal, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. Jake Bates kicked the game winner 35-yard field goal as time expired.
And how late in the game did Green Bay score to tie it up?
I can get that for you here.
Sorry about that. I put you on the spot.
Good.
I know.
Yeah. Play by play. Let's see here. Green Bay. Oh, why would they put it in the other order? End of game. Green Bay had it at 8 minutes.
That's when they scored, or when the drive started?
That's when the drive started.
Okay.
And then they scored here 3 minutes.
Okay.
McManus
kicked. Right. I think I thought it was later than it was, but it was still
McManus kicked a field goal at 3:38.
I hate to break in here, but Stonehands just caught the go-ahead touchdown for the Chargers against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Very nice.
All right, what else do you have on this game? It was a little way back, and there's a lot of big-time scores in the Sunday game. So anything else you want to add to this game?
Yeah, so basically, Goff did a great job this game. MVP, 32 out of 41 passes. He did have 6 players record at least 5 receptions each.
Wow.
So yeah, it was all about that. So an unusual pregame incident occurred though, when a person holding the American flag during the national anthem reportedly made some threatening gestures towards the Packers players. He was kind of doing the like the thumb across the throat.
Okay.
And the coach got into it with this fan. I mean, it's like, this is a regular guy, and security was not stepping in. And I was like, what's going on here? There's no security. And the coach had to be held back. Like the coach was like going after him.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But but that was it. So
actually, as you were going on, I remembered a couple other things here. So, the Packers have that mixture of kind of non-number one receivers. You never know which one's going to step up here, but usually when one is missing, that increases the likelihood that one of the other ones is going to have a better day.
Yeah.
And you would expect Jaden Reed the first on the pecking order, but he ended up getting 0 points. I believe only one target. Christian Watson was the one who had the better scoring day. He had over 100 yards. I forget the exact stat line here. Josh Jacobs, though, is the man. When I as a fantasy manager, I love it. When they get close, sometimes it's based on penalties and pass interference and stuff like that, but they give Jacobs that first couple cracks. Almost all 75% of the time down there, he gets the first couple of cracks at it, and he's been punching them in lately, scoring touchdowns left and right over the last 4 weeks. So he scores the touchdowns. Christian Watson got the yards, and we had a big-time goose for Jaden Reed.
Oh, yeah. Jaden Reed was only targeted once. Christian Watson was targeted 7 times.
Okay.
In comparison. Okay, so I'm totally blank because this game was on Thursday. Let's not forget this. This is Dan Campbell. So aggressive. Okay. He had 5 fourth down attempts.
Wow.
Right? Accumulating into a crucial 4th and 1 conversion with 43 seconds left. So this was no, we're not going to kick it and go into overtime or anything like that. We're going for it. We're not going to give them any more time, because they could have kicked it and then they could have given the Packers a little bit more time, but he went for it on that 4th down.
Do you know where they were on the field?
They were in field goal range. They could have kicked it. I tell you exactly where they were.
Just curious, if you're at your own 10-yard line, you're less likely to do that, I would assume.
Oh yeah, no. So, but that was the story of that game, was how ballsy is this Dan Campbell to go for it. And he said he just felt like he was going to do it. It was a 53-yard field goal that they made. So let's see where the kick actually was from. Yeah.
Oh, to get him into field goal range, not to run out the clock, but to get him a little closer to keep it going.
He kicked a 35-yard field goal.
Okay.
So they got the first down, minus 3 yards. Where was that 4th down? 4th and 1, Montgomery right tackle to the Green Bay 14 for 7 yards.
I feel like he coaches, not exactly, but almost more like a baseball manager, where it's like sometimes you just got to throw out the stats and this is what my guys are doing this right now. We got this,
Yeah, they were at Green Bay's 21. They got the first down to make it to the 14. He lost 3 yards, so he kicked it from.
But by doing that, they were able to run off an extra 45.
Exactly. He didn't want to give them the time.
Gotcha. Perfect. Nice job. All right, let's move along to our Sunday's games.
All right, the first Sunday game we have is another nail biter extravaganza point fest. The Jacksonville Jaguars defeated the Tennessee Titans 10-6, ending their 5-game losing streak and dropping both teams to 3-10.
We mentioned this game was going to be very low scoring. There was only 1 touchdown in the game. I actually was hoping it would go the other way around. I didn't have this one on because it was just, I didn't want to, burn my eyes, but I was following along the refreshing the box score here. And I did notice multiple times at the end, because the game was never out of reach at any time, because it was always 6-zip, 6-3, then 10-6, I guess. Something like that anyway.
3-0, 6-0, and then 10-6.
Right. Yeah. So, but I did look, and the Titans turned the ball over 3 or 4 times on downs. They just let Levis try to make the play, and it was just they didn't have any runs. It was just incomplete pass, incomplete. And I don't know where these works. I was box score watching, down the middle, incomplete pass, incomplete to Ridley, incomplete to Ridley, incomplete to Ridley. Jackson gets the ball, 3 and out, take the ball back, incomplete down the middle, incomplete to Ridley. It was I don't know what he was doing. Obviously struggled today. An awful score. But did you happen to watch any of that or see that they were just all right, we're gonna let you prove us that you're not good enough. They just gave him all the opportunities to try and bring them back, and he just could not do it.
Yeah, no, this was like you said earlier for the waiver wire last week. It was these were the 2 defenses that everybody needed to pick up. So it was a defensive game. Levis was just off. The defense played good, played better than he played. So there's really not much more to say.
The thing is, neither of these defenses actually racked up any stats. It was just kind of controlling the field position is all they were doing.
Exactly. It was just the 3 and outs. It wasn't anything. What's his name? Mac Jones had 2 interceptions.
Right.
So, and then Will Levis did have a shoulder injury that he sustained at the halftime. Brian Robinson Jr. had a career day with 8 catches for 86 yards. I mean, if that's a career day, this is what we're talking about here. So, and then I don't know, that it really wasn't anything else. The failed red zone opportunities is really what it came down to, I think.
Not to correct you, Thomas Jr.
Brian Thomas Jr. What did I say?
You said Robinson. I just
Brian
that's
Thomas
fine.
Jr.
Yeah,
Brian Thomas
we all
Jr.
do it. Just want to be sure.
Yep. So, all right, let's move on to this game.
Let's get out of that game as fast as possible.
Fast as possible. All right. The Miami Dolphins defeated the New York Jets 32-26 in overtime, with Tua throwing a 10-yard touchdown pass to who? Jonnu Smith for the win. Love it.
So this game was, I forget how far apart that they were at times here, but at a certain point, Aaron Rodgers was dealing. He was looking pretty good. Braylon Allen got the start, but Isaiah Davis got more work. I mean, at least even amount of work, but was definitely more productive. Scored the touchdown, almost had another one. And it wasn't just like last week how I had on the field for 3 or 4 plays and caught that one kind of a shovel pass on the sweep. He got carries. It was
50-50. Braylon Allen got 11. Isaiah Davis got 10. 43 yards for Allen, 40 yards for Davis.
Yeah, I thought Davis looked better, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. Although I think he made more like a couple rookie mistakes, either like maybe picking up a blitz or something, or like maybe going the wrong way once or twice. But for the most part, on the raw look of it, he was pretty darn good today, Isaiah Davis there. But Devontae Adams looked good again. He was dancing around. I felt why the Dolphins were stalling out. They kept giving the ball. It was their first one of their first touchdowns. It might have been their first touchdown. They gave Achane the ball like 7 times because there was like a pass interference call or some sort of thing that reset the first downs inside the 5. He finally scored on a rushing touchdown, but it took him like 7 times to get 3 yards. And like the announcer, like, that's how you do it. You grind this one. I'm like, that's not grinding them down. That's like failing 6 times and getting in there, getting lucky once. For the 8th straight time, Devon Achane can't top 25 yards rushing, but he finishes with a good day as he gets 6 catches usually and a score. So he still finished off good. The thing that was most impressive actually about this game in terms of the Dolphins was their end of half's offense. They scored they got the ball with, you can maybe look as I'm setting this up here. At the end of the first half, I believe they must have got the ball off a score from the Jets because they got the ball with 15 to 40 seconds left, give or take. I might be off by a little bit. And it's one of those things like we're going to kneel this out. No, we're going to go down to a bam, 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 three plays, got him into a long kick. Sanders hit a 52-yard kick to get a field goal just at the end of the half that I think maybe gave him the lead back or at least got it back within 1 point if they were down 4. But that was a huge field goal because and at the end of the game, after another score, I think the Jets scored a field goal on that one at the end. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of the half, again, they had very limited time, and they went down, got in field goal range. Again, I think it was a 56-yard field goal, that one. So they had 2 long kicks at the end of both halves. That was actually the best offense that the Dolphins had all day in terms of like looking good. Like they scored a couple other times, but it was kind of choppy and mixed match. But those end of half drives were the most impressive that Tua looked all day, including that the overtime drive. They got the ball to start off overtime. Bam, bam, bam. Jonnu Smith 3 catches and the touchdown to seal the game at the end. It was all they played great in the most pressure situations, but the Jets outplayed them throughout the entire game.
Yeah, so this is the frustrating part about it. Okay, but to get to your first half, ending the first half, 1st and 10 at the Miami 46 with 44 seconds left. 44
seconds, yep.
Yep, so got it down there. 2nd and 10, nothing. And then they got a 1st and 10 to get to the 40 with a short pass to Tyreek Hill. And then another pass to Waddle. And then
Spike probably.
A 52-yard field goal. So it was 7 seconds left. You're right, though. This was so frustrating. And this is typical Dolphins. It's like you're playing good enough where they're not going to blow up the whole team, where they're not going to fire the general manager, where they're not going to put the coach on some sort of hot seat, where you have these drives of these plays and Tua's he's so efficient and his timing is awesome and Tyreek is so fast and the play calling is awesome. But they can't do it for an entire game except for the one time they did it against the crappy Denver team. Like, come on, like just be consistent with it. It's like you're trying too many fancy things. You're trying outsmart yourself at a certain point with these play calls, with the players just not 100% either in. A lot of the talk around the water cooler, a lot of the talk at the coffee shop, the barber shop, wherever you want to have your talk, is it a problem with the players being in Miami? Like, are they not taking this seriously? Is this they are taking it seriously, but is there too many extracurricular things that can happen in Miami that is hindering this team to be so laser focused? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they seem to have a great chemistry. Whenever one of the guys score, they all kind of. I mean, like for someone like example, like Tyreek Hill, who's like obviously like the superstar, but he gets just excited when other guys score. He's the first one to pat him on the top of the head and jump on top of their shoulders and stuff. And so that's always good to see. Instead of sometimes you have certain like George Pickens. I'm not saying George Pickens does this, but I'm saying someone like that might, when someone else scores, give a half-hearted high five and kind of walk off kind of thing.
yeah, for sure. The chemistry is there. I think there's something about it, and nobody can really put their finger on why they can't be consistently good, because they have all of the elements to be a really good team.
So I got one more question for you. I'm going to try and filibuster, let you look at it. Can you find out when New York Jets scored their go-ahead field goal towards the end of the fourth quarter? So it was tied late in the fourth quarter.
52 seconds left.
How much?
52 seconds. It was a 42-yard field goal, gave the Jets
there you
the
go.
lead.
So both drives, they had field goals at the end. They had the ball with less than a minute to go.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that they messed up, the Jets did after Rodgers took them down, took a lot of time off the clock, couldn't take it all down. A touchdown would have sealed their game for the Jets, but they got in a field goal range, kicked it with about that, 52 seconds, give or take, when I don't know if that's when the next drive started or when that drive ended, but in that less than a minute left, they scored a go-ahead field goal. They kicked it off, and Malik Washington caught it at the inside the end zone by about 1 yard deep. And instead of taking the knee, brought it out, which is a little risky because that takes off 6 to 8 seconds running it. But he had like a 45-yard return, got it close to midfield. So the Dolphins just needed those 2 or 3 plays, because I think they were out of timeouts by that point, because they used them all to try and save time to have any chance on offense. So they used all their timeouts on defense. So that run back was huge. Got them where they only needed 2 or 3 plays to get into that 56-yard field goal range. And Jason Sanders was a stud today. Did he miss one extra point?
He did the first touchdown.
He missed an extra point, but made up for it with 2 50-yard kicks at the buzzer of each half.
Crucial kicks. So he did great for as much kicker nonsense that's been going on with missed kicks that inside the 50 yards. He pulled it through. So, but here's the thing: we don't need to rely on him. The defense needs to do something, because this was Aaron Rodgers' first 300-yard passing game since December of 2021.
I think it was over 20 games. It was like 26 games. I don't know if it was 26, but it was over 20 games.
Why are we doing this? It's the Jets. It's Aaron Rodgers. He's old. Just take him out.
Well, he was in Miami. That's where the old guys go and they feel good, man. The warm weather, he loosened up.
Oh, my joints, my bones feeling good. All right.
All right. That was one more thing to add before we go, just because, of course, we spent a little more time on the Dolphins here. Jonnu Smith was doing nothing, had a 0, and then caught 3 passes on the final drive in overtime, including the game-winning touchdown. Finished with a decent fantasy day, although it took the overtime period to get there. But he was... I mean, he's a good player. And it's more than just catching the ball there. Yeah. He was so fired up on all of those catches in the fourth quarter. So he didn't check out, which is pretty impressive. Sometimes these guys don't get the ball early, and then some people check out. He was in it and just waited for his time and made the most of it.
Okay, so this is my opinion on it, and I could be completely wrong, because I'm obviously not a very good fantasy football manager, and I'm definitely not a coach or a play caller or anything like that. I'm just a guy with an opinion. But why are we waiting to these overtime things to get these great plays and these great drives, going, to get Jonnu going? Why aren't we doing all of this early, so we have this lead, so we have this comfort of now we can really, we can blitz more, we've got a lead, we can do all of these other things? Why are we saving these things? Like, you're saving it for the playoffs and you're saving it for the Super Bowl. You're never going to make it to the Super Bowl or the playoffs. Get these great plays, get these great drives out now. Get them out. Stop. Sorry.
All right. Let's move this along here. Right. Good win though for the Dolphins. They are still alive. They're chasing, I think, the Chargers and the Bengals and teams like that, and they're gonna need all those teams to lose. They're gonna have to keep winning.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. The Minnesota Vikings defeated the Atlanta Falcons 42-21, securing their sixth straight victory and maintaining their position one game behind Detroit in the NFC North at 11-2.
Every time I blinked, the Vikings scored again. It was crazy. I was like, Atlanta would score and kind of keep it up. It was tied or close up to like 21-21, give or take. But not only it would take Atlanta a long time to get down there and score, and then on one or two plays, the Vikings would take the lead right back until eventually they just stopped scoring. Did the Atlanta Falcons? Once again, early in the game or the first half, Cousins had an interception. They had another where they turned it over on downs and field goal range. Obviously, Koo is not healthy. If he's going to affect, you have to score every time you get a chance because you're not converting these fourth downs. I mean, we're not angling for field goals here, but if you have a guy on your team who's not healthy enough to play, you see all around the league here. We have so many kickers have been hurt all year, and they're just picking them off the street, and they're performing just as well. Give Koo a couple weeks off, maybe, because it's really affecting how their decision making, and at the end, it's really hurting them because they're putting too much on Kirk Cousins' plate. And I'm sure you'll bring it up. That's 4 straight games without a touchdown pass for Kirk Cousins, and I believe he has 8 interceptions. You can double check me there. He's got 8 interceptions and no touchdowns over the last 4 games.
Yep, two more today added to that total. That's absolutely right, or included in that total, right? Without any touchdowns. So absolutely right. This was tough. This was Sam Darnold's career day. This was Kirk Cousins continuing this downward spiral. Justin Jefferson returned to the end zone today. Addison had, if not a career day, a really damn close to career day. But the bright spot, I guess, for fantasy was the great Bijan gaining 92 yards and a touchdown, dude, while Tyler Algier stole one, but it's okay. It really is okay. I don't know what to say. I watched the game and it was frustrating. Mooney looked good. Everybody looked good. The defense didn't look bad. Sam Darnold had a career day. I mean, going up against those two receivers, there's really, if the Falcons can't score, there's really nothing they could have done.
So this one I didn't watch. I had my 4-game split screen there, and this one didn't make it because of just whatever. So last week, Kirk Cousins played awful, but he looked off like he couldn't throw the ball. Like the throws were actually bad. How did he look today? Did he look a little better, or was it still fluttering around the field?
Yeah, he looked better. He's just I think his vision. He's just missing these guys. The throws weren't horrible throws. Like they weren't like, oh my gosh, they weren't Jameis Winston interceptions. They were like, okay, it's close enough. Maybe the offensive player could have done a little bit more to prevent that, but none of them were egregious, like bad throws. But okay, so we got a fumbled kickoff by Raymond McLeod, right? Minnesota gets the ball. Then we've got a holding penalty on the defense for Atlanta during a field goal. So they got the ball back. And then 3 plays later, Jefferson scores a touchdown. So it's just the Falcons, their offense was horrible, but Cousins just couldn't get a touchdown pass.
All right, we're gonna have to move this one along here. Yeah. We're getting already long in the thing. We got a lot of games to go, so it's not your fault, my fault. We'll get these a little more bullet pointed to get through these remaining games here.
All right, let's do this. The New Orleans Saints defeated the New York Giants 14-11 with Brian Breesy blocking the potential game-tying field goal in the final seconds.
Ending wise, I was watching this game too because you had 2 running backs in there, so I was watching the score there. I was like, oh, don't go to overtime. Don't give these guys more chance to play, obviously. I'm like, oh, they're going to tie it here. And I literally blinked. And I'm like, the game's over? What happened? I assumed they were going to make the kick. They weren't far away. It was a close kick. Yeah. And you said it was blocked. I thought it said missed on the stats, but it was a blocked kick.
It was blocked. Yeah, and this guy is a big guy. He's not a Myles Garrett where he's like clearing over the center. He like jumped through the gap in between the A gap. He kind of like in between jump. Landed, but he's a big guy, like a 300-pounder, and he had his hand up in the air the whole time. As he landed, the kick just went right into his hand.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
So Kendra Miller made, I know to your dismay here, Kendra Miller made his season debut today. There were several times, especially that first touchdown, I thought they looked similar. If you weren't staring at the screen, you kind of look, that's a Kamara running down. Oh no, that was Miller. Miller's touchdown looked like Kamara when he first scored. I did notice Kendra Miller got a lot more work than I expected, first of all. A lot more work.
For sure, he did, yes.
But they were both on the field at the same time.
I know. And
they were using one guy to fake for the other guy, and it seemed like Kamara was more the decoy more often. They kind of split, but more often than I would have thought, Kamara was the one doing the fake part, and they would hand it off to Miller.
Well, here, yeah, and that's the thing that made me worry so much about why Derek Carr was doing what he did, because he was having both of these guys in the backfield, which is it's a great idea to have. They needed to split it more between the two, and not just. It's just so frustrating. I'm sorry.
Their running game was moving the ball. They were moving the ball all day, and then all of a sudden they just kind of, I don't know if it was play calling. It seemed like they're going to win this game easy, and then because they didn't score for the whole second half or most of it, Giants just slowly kind of worked their way back, and you look at the score like, oh, they can tie this, and they did, or that they were going to. I don't know how the Giants even came back in this game. Drew Lock looked awful, but he had a big run to keep one of those drives alive when it looked like it was going to be over, and he kept them alive in this one. The Saints won. They're winning with their new coach, but this game was ugly. They should have run away with this one.
They definitely should have. So let's run this one out of the thing here. Okay, moving on. Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Carolina Panthers 22-16, securing their 9th straight victory and maintaining their position as the number 2 seed. Did I already do this? Oh,
no,
number 2 seed in the NFC at 11-2, behind only Detroit at 12-1.
Carolina once again. Not only they were matching them. The whole game they were with. The lead. I felt like the lead was going back and forth. It could be mistaken, but it was never out of reach at any point. It was in 3 points the whole time. The offense for Philadelphia was just doing enough. They weren't really. They weren't obviously only 108 passing yards. They were not passing the ball, and I felt like Barkley didn't have a big game either. Nope. Hurts did take the touchdowns. They had took him 2 or 3 tush pushes, but they just kept going with it on one of those touchdowns he ran in. And Adam Thielen is awesome. He's actually really fun to watch.
He is, yeah. And he's a competitor, because there was a couple times late in that game where he was winded after a big catch, and and you could see he was shaking them off, be like, no, I'm good. And then they got an incomplete pass, and then he was on the sideline, and he was like huffing, oh my gosh. But Bryce Young played good, man. He played there. He did have a couple rookie throws and a couple of rookie looks, and he was like, and then Thielen walked over and patted him and be like, it's okay. You don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
You mentioned before, Leggett had he took a huge hit early in the game. I thought he was going to be out for the game, and then just only a few plays later, he was back on. I mean, it was a big hit, and he was back on the field. I'm sure it rattled his brain a little bit, but he stayed out there. That was pretty impressive. He survived that hit there. Carolina once again it's perfect. They're showing they can play with these top-notch teams. They're not winning to not risk their potential high draft pick potential here. And they might, we thought they might be looking to get a draft pick for a new quarterback. They still may, but now that at the very least, they have trade value in their quarterback they have now. So they either have a quarterback for the future already on their roster, or someone that they could be willing to trade away for at least a 3rd or 4th round pick later on.
Yeah, a couple of quick key notes here.
Sure.
Saquon Barkley, he broke LaShawn McCoy's Eagles single season rushing record with 1607. So
that's crazy.
And then Chuba Hubbard surpassed 1,000 rushing yards for the season.
Nice. Way to go, Chuba.
Yeah. All right. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the Cleveland Browns 27-14, improving to 10-3 and moving 2 games ahead of Baltimore in the AFC North.
By the end of this game, it was kind of a blowout here. We had Pittsburgh Steelers took this one down. It took a little while for them to pull away, but once they did, they never looked back. I don't know what happened to the Browns. They were kind of moving the ball. Then they had a couple, at least one Jameis Winston interception, and it seemed like that kind of took the sails. I think it was 7-7 earlier. Jerry Jeudy had a nice touchdown to start the game. If it wasn't the first score of the game, it was the first score for the Browns, and it kept it at that 7-10 area. And then what was the final score this one? It was like 37-20 or something. 37-14?
27-14.
27-14, yeah.
Yep.
So it was close in the first half, and then the Browns just stopped scoring.
Oh, yeah. And this one, Russell, he didn't have to do much. He did have 2 passing touchdowns, but so did Jameis. Jameis also had 2 passing touchdowns, but Jameis also had 2 interceptions. The run game, I think, is the huge concern here with the Browns. There's just nothing to help Jameis. So Nick Chubb only had 48 yards, and Jerome Ford only had 28 yards, and Winston had 28 yards. So it's an even split, 11 carries and 10 carries between Chubb and Ford. Without that run game, Jameis can't just be the guy because we all know what he's going to do. He's going to throw touchdowns and interceptions. So there's got to be a middle ground there.
I don't want to spend too much time here, but are you surprised, at least record-wise, how good the Steelers are?
Yes and no. Yes, I am surprised because I'm not a huge Najee Harris fan, and they really don't have anybody as wide receivers standouts except they have Russell Wilson. And I've been watching a couple of these games, and Russell Wilson is like his throwing is on point this season. Like he is not missing his throws at all. He's hitting his guys in stride. What do they call in his throw? The moon ball.
Yeah.
Like even the moon balls that aren't really moon balls he's just throwing it downfield. Like he's hitting them on the sidelines in stride. Like he's on for sure.
I wonder if it was a offense style, personality style. I feel like Sean Payton's more of a micromanager when it comes to offense. Like, do this play, this is what we're doing, and maybe they're giving him a little more freedom. And he's obviously playing way better with the Steelers than he was with the Broncos.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, he is one of my candidates, I think, for Coach of the Year because of them being 10-3 with this roster.
Yep.
He's doing a pretty good job. Okay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 28-13. Moving into sole position of first place in the NFC South with a 7-6 record.
The Tampa Bay Bucs scored on their first two drives. It was Jalen McMillan and Rashad White, if I'm not mistaken, because I think he had two touchdowns. So they scored on their first two drives. In that first two drives area, I saw Bucky Irving. He got almost like a draw handoff. It was just a straight up the middle thing, and he took two steps and just kind of went down. Like, I don't know if it's if he his hip locked up. He definitely went. It wasn't like he was tackled. It obviously wasn't a non-contact injury. I think he was just sore and banged up, and he's like, "Oh, that hurts. I'm not loosened up enough, or something." And then he didn't play the rest of the day because he got carries in those first two drives. By the end of that second drive, he was pretty much done, and it wasn't a hit. Other than So I think they said it wasn't an aggravation. I'm like, or he wasn't ready to go. Then he wasn't able to play today. Couldn't get warmed up, loosened up, whatever you want to call it. It looked like they were going to run away this game. They scored so easy those first two drives, and then all of a sudden they just stopped scoring for a while, made it a little dicey. But for them, the Raiders really never got on track. Sincere McCormick, Amir Abdullah didn't touch the ball today. I actually picked up Abdullah just in case to block one of your potential guys when you had Kenneth Walker go out. I'm like, I don't know who you're going to go with that. That's just a name that's out there.
Yeah.
And McCormick got all of the work. Finished with close to 100 yards, if not over 100 total yards. Did not score, but he looked like a normal running back. Didn't look great, but with that amount of opportunity, if he does that opportunity again and gets in the end zone, he's going to be a nice 15-point scorer in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, he had 2 receptions for 11 yards, and he had 15 rushes for 78 yards.
Okay.
But he had a long of 29. So he did look good. So Brock Bowers, it's going to be tough going forward if Aiden is out. But he broke the NFL rookie tight end reception record previously held by Sam Laporta from last year at 86. So he's got 87, and he's got a few games left to go. So if he can get somebody to throw him the ball, he's going to be setting this record pretty high.
So in this one, Mike Evans, I turned the game on it, like the game already started. I thought they were going to start at 105. I felt like it started at 12:59. It was already going when I turned the game on. And Mike Evans already had a catch or two, but I did see he caught, I don't know if he ended up catching it, but it was thrown to him, and he got hit pretty hard. I felt like maybe on the side. Wasn't or no, he jumped up, and when he landed, you couldn't tell what pressure was put on which joint as he was kind of getting tackled coming down. He got up slow as a Mike Evans manager was very nervous. And after that, he only caught 1 or 2 more passes. He did have a nice long run after catch way late in the game, but he had 3 targets on the first 4 plays and then only had like 2 the rest of the day. I think he was banged up, and they were using him as a decoy because they were like looking for Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan.
Yep.
Mostly Shepard. McMillan had the touchdowns on limited catches.
McMillan had seven targets, and Shepard had 6 targets.
Okay, yeah, it looked like felt like they were going to Shepard like first read. Actually, I saw a couple plays. I think Mayfield looked over at Evans first read, but Evans was just jogging because I think he was hurt. Maybe not like injured, but you know what I mean, like not feeling great. And he looked over. He's like, he's not going to get open. And then he would go to the guy in the middle, which was Shepard, because Evans didn't do anything today, but he looked slow. But he was on the field every time. I'm looking around, like, where is he? Oh, there he is. He's walking from the back into the pile, or into the huddle. And then What else there? Rashad White had a great day, filled in nicely, went back to his old form from last year. Actually ran the ball better this time than we usually see him. And what else was there? I think that was pretty much it. Jacoby Myers got work late, actually finished with a decent day. But for the most part, the Tampa Bay Bucks took that 14-point lead early, coasted on that, and punched in a late score with Rashad White for a second score. McMillan got his second score, and that capped it off.
Yeah, for sure. So good on that. Sincere McCormick, Rashad White. I don't know if I would mess with these other guys, but I'll dive into that on the next episode as far as the waiver wire with Shepard and McMillan. We'll see what the news kind of pays out. But Cade Otton had 70 yards, so he just missed that one touchdown.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on here. The Seattle Seahawks defeated the Arizona Cardinals 30-18, maintaining their lead in the NFC West at 8-5.
Seahawks have the Cardinals number. They dominate them. Eventually, the Cardinals had some decent stats, especially Connor. Murray got okay stats by the end, but only because they were in garbage time for most of the game here. Charbonnet shot out like a cannon. I looked down, he had 13 points in the first drive. I don't know if it was that high, but it kept adding on. Every time I looked down, I'm like, did he score again? No, he was just getting yards after yards, catches after catches. My question is to you here, just I want to move this along as quick as possible, but this is something to talk about. Is Charbonnet better than Kenneth Walker? Is he a better player? Because he's been better on the field this year.
Yeah, it was the same thing last year. Charbonnet came on strong, and then the next couple games, it was like a drop off. So I really think it's the coach. I really think it's the game planning. A lot to do with the opponent, obviously, but they're just not putting these guys in the best position to win every game. You know, it's I don't know what's going on with the prep for, individual teams, but Charbonnet has the talent. Clearly he's doing it, but so does Ken Walker. Obviously the injury for Ken Walker, he's probably been lingering throughout the season and nobody wants to, fess up to it. But I wouldn't put all my eggs in Charbonnet's basket at this point.
So not only was Charbonnet dominating in the running game and the passing game, but they were able to do that in that first half because Kyler Murray, once again, was awful. Had 2 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, both in the first half, which just put him behind the 8 ball, let the Seahawks dominated time of possession, yards, score. And like I said, eventually we got a little bit of garbage time and comeback mode for the Cardinals here, but they were never really in this game.
Yeah, and Seattle took control with those back-to-back interceptions, converting both of them into touchdowns.
There you go.
Yeah, that defense definitely stepped up. All right, what we got here? 2 more games here, bud. Los Angeles Rams. Oh, I like to say this. Let me say it again. The Los Angeles Rams defeated the Buffalo Bills 44-42. Snapping Buffalo's 7-game winning streak and improving to 7-6 despite Josh Allen's massive game.
The Rams got up early. Kyron Williams scored, I think, the first touchdown right away. Then I think Puka got in, and they were kind of, they weren't holding out, they weren't shutting out the Bills, but they were up, that 10 to 14 point range for most of the time. And then all of a sudden in the second half is pretty much not all of his stats, but 80% of his stats for Josh Allen. He's one of those guys like he's so good. He doesn't always have to do it, but when it's like, all right, we're not doing this, I'm going to take it over. That's when he gets hurt potentially, but he can do it. He's like, all right, I'm just going to run every play. I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to score because we need to come back. And it takes, I don't want to rely on anybody else. I can do it. Let me just do it. And he did that in that second half, man. He did it all. He was running, throwing, scoring touchdowns, got it close. The game got, they tie it back up towards the end. They got it within a score. They just ran out of time. If there was another 6 minutes of this game, I think the Bills would have won this game.
Really? Yeah, maybe. That's why McVay did everything he did and went for it on that or backed them up on that 4th down, and then to get that punt up and over at the end of the game there to run the timeout. It was all about not giving Josh Allen the time. Right. It was amazing, but let's not take anything away from Stafford, who threw 320 yards, game-winning touchdown to Puka Nacua. And he did great, Matthew Stafford impresses me the older he gets. Every year goes by and I'm like, okay, this is the year. Okay, this is the year. But no, he's still a great player. But Josh Allen, man, first player in NFL history, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns in a game. It's pretty unbelievable, honestly. I got nothing more to say, but they lost, so I'm happy.
Well, Puka Nacua is so weird. He
Puka
looks
Nacua,
like an out of control wrecking ball who is so in control of his body. He puts his body exactly where it needs to be. I don't know if it's by accident, luck. It doesn't look luck. I mean, it looks like, but like when he goes up, he's just a flailing mess in the air, but catches it, gets cracked, and then finds a way to get his feet or hands where they need to be by the end of the play. He's one of the most fun players to watch because you don't know how it's going to happen, but you know there's going to be garbage are left all over the field by the end of it, just a wake of a mess of bodies and stuff, and he's going to have the ball in his hands by the end of it.
Yep, and then let's do the Rams block punt.
That's right. They scored a defensive touchdown. That's right.
Scored a defensive touchdown, and then they converted a crucial 4th and 5 with an 11-yard pass to Tutu Atwell on the final scoring drive. So there's a lot going on there. The Rams look great, though. They look great. Hopefully this deflates Buffalo a little bit.
It's a big win for the Rams. It doesn't really matter for the Bills, really. They've already locked up the AFC East, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless,
yeah. But let's get them another. Were they playing Kansas City next week or something?
I forget. I'm not sure. I had it, but I forget.
Okay. And either way, all right. Last game, bud. Last game. Here we go.
Yep.
San Francisco 49ers defeated the Chicago Bears. They destroyed the Chicago Bears 38-13, bouncing back from 2 blowout losses to improve to 6-7.
Brock Purdy was dealing. Isaac Guerrero was pounding. The thing I liked about they had a nice long moon ball pass to Guerrero I don't know if it was a wheel route, but essentially got behind the covering linebacker, and because he knows he's not a receiver where he has to line drive, he just put air underneath it and let him just kind of find the ball, knowing that he already had the linebacker beat. He caught the ball falling down to the 1 yard line, and they gave it right back to him to score. I love when the guy who gets the yards gets the touchdown. That's always just a nice punctuation instead of a Jalen Hurts, tush push, or Tyler Algier 5-yard run after someone else gets all the yards. So that's always nice. And he was just dealing. Juwan Jennings had 2 touchdowns. Kittle, I blinked, and he had 5 catches for 130 yards before the first half was over. They just dominated this game. And then the defense, after having a goose last week to help Bernie keep his playoff hopes alive, they were dominating today, getting sacks left and right. I don't think they scored a touchdown, but they finished with double-digit points just by dominating Caleb Williams in the offensive backfield.
Oh, yeah. This game was definitely won in the trenches on both sides for the 49ers because Caleb didn't have a bad game. 7 sacks for 46 yards is not bad, but no interceptions. He was efficient, 17 of 23, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. So it's not a horrible stat line. It's just not enough because there was no running game.
Right.
DeAndre Swift had 38 yards. Caleb Williams had 27 yards. Some guy named Evans, who cares? He had 3 yards. Like, nobody cares about that. The trenches is where they lost this game. And it's sad because DJ Moore had a 14-yard pass and catch. Rome had a 17-yard. Keenan Allen had a 14-yard. Like, it was there. The run game let them down. The line let them down. Just a sad state of affairs.
Roma Dunze finally, he had a 20-point game in terms of fantasy, like in week 3 or 4, give or take, but he finally got back there. He had an awesome touchdown where he did like a super leap where he brought his knees up to his elbows to kind of secure a high ball, but he got his feet back down in the very corner of the end zone. That was pretty cool because he had a long way to go to get his feet down to the ground, and he found the sweet spot to like just toe tap his feet there at the back of the end zone. I think he caught 2 touchdowns today, if I'm not mistaken. There was something else here. Brock Purdy, he came back in, but he had a kind of scary looking injury. I don't know if it's called injury because he came back. He was pump faking the ball in a pile, so the guy jumped up in front of him to knock it down. And when he finally let go, just kind of get rid of it before a sack, the guy landed on top of him, pulled his head back as the other guys were on his legs. So his whole body did like a reverse C. And I was like, oh my gosh, anything could go here. But I'm sure he's going to be sore tomorrow. His neck's going to be sore tomorrow. But he missed only 1 or 2 plays and came back in. They did have Brandon Allen finish the game out because it was a blowout. And like you mentioned, Darrington Evans for the Bears had carries because it was a blowout. So they were bringing in backups in that second half of the fourth quarter. So just keep an eye on Brock Purdy. He's already dealing with a shoulder injury. He looked great today, but he did get twisted up pretty good, although he did come back in the game.
Yeah, and let's remember this was the first game with the Bears interim head coach, which was the guy that was elevated to offensive coordinator after they fired their offensive coordinator.
Right.
He got elevated again to the head coach. So I'm not going to blame the Bears for this loss. The 49ers just had a better team, better players, better execution. That's all.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the offensive coordinator for Carolina last year who got fired from there. So this guy just keeps failing upwards, I guess, at least for now. I mean, give him an opportunity. Who knows what's going to happen? But in terms of success rate, it's not coming up, but he keeps getting promotions.
Exactly. All right. So that'll do it for our Sunday games outside of the Sunday night game.
All right. And at the moment, we're very close. I think Kansas City I think they're in field goal range with not a lot of time left, might get another last-second field goal to win another game that they didn't deserve to win. All right, guys, real quick, let's do some early waiver wire thoughts or targets here. You want me to just run off my list and you can add from there?
Please do.
All right. Offensive players. Patrick Taylor Jr. was actually picked up in our league on earlier before the game, knowing the potential for injury for any San Francisco running back. I'd honestly pick up the next 3 guys in line and just keep them ready to go. But Patrick Taylor Jr. with Isaac Guerrero spraining his foot. Severity, we're not sure.
Hold on. That must be our first place team that picked him up.
No, it was a player who's out of the playoffs, but looking to get 7th place in that consolation
there you
playoff
go.
bracket.
Staying alive, buddy.
There you
That's
go.
The way to do
but
it.
keep in mind, not only we're not sure the severity of the injury, but they do play on Thursday night. So like Bernie mentioned earlier, the short turnaround makes us even more likely that Guerrero may miss time. So Patrick Taylor out there, guys, he's going to be a potential must start this week for you guys out there in fantasy land. Aaron Rodgers looked a lot better today. That's that warm weather maybe. Double check this real quick. They're playing Jacksonville next week. I don't know if it's in Florida, but if it's in Florida, definitely playing. But either way, they're playing Jacksonville, which is unless you're Will Levis, is a team that you can
at Jacksonville.
All right, got Aaron Rodgers in Florida against a bad defense.
Yep.
I'm not an Aaron Rodgers advocate here, but I'm saying if you're desperate, this might be the time to pull the trigger. Bryce Young, they're playing Dallas. Again, he's just playing good enough, but I mean, he's playing well. He's not a stat hog here in terms of fantasy, but if you're desperate, he is playing and he's playing well. Tank Dell against Miami. If you're desperate for a receiver, there's not too many good receivers out there. Sincere McCormick, he got all the carries today. They're playing against Atlanta. I don't know. At some point, Atlanta might start to quit on their team. I'm not sure. Do you have any other offensive players before I get to my defenses?
Did you say McMillan?
No,
Jalen
I did not.
Okay.
I did not.
So Jalen McMillan, Tim Patrick, they both have almost 20 fantasy points this week, and they're both in offenses that are going to put up some points. So just watch towards as we get closer to playoff time for both of these teams, especially Detroit. Amon-Ra might say, I need a little couple quarters breaks here and there. So Tim Patrick could have a little bit bigger role going forward. And
since you mentioned McMillan, like I said, Mike Evans finished the game. He looked slow today, and it was after that tangle up with his legs. Mm-hmm. So K. Dotton, he didn't do anything until the slowing down of Mike Evans. So K. Dotton is clearly, like, if you're going to handcuff running back, he is the clear handcuff to Mike Evans or any of those top tier receivers. So K. Dotton also makes that list. Thanks for mentioning that. Now for some defenses here, we have Dallas up against Carolina. Not as easy as it used to be, but in our league, Dallas is available out there. They keep kind of picked up and dropped, but they've scored double digits. If it's not 2 games in a row, at least 2 of their last 3. They've been coming on as their defensive superstars are coming back and getting healthy. And I have the Atlanta defense here, who's actually already picked up in our league, but I can see they're going to be out there in a lot of leagues out there. They're playing against Las Vegas next week, who's going to be most likely starting Desmond Ridder. A revenge game for both the Atlanta defense and Ridder against his former team here. So this has a potential to be a high sack game for the Atlanta Falcons against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, so like you were saying, Dallas in Week 12 went against Washington, put up 19 points, and this week 14 points against the Giants. Or last week, 14 points against the Giants.
All right, guys. I want to thank you all so very much for joining us for another. I can't say the word 2-point conversion anymore after I've said 2-point conversation so much. I stumble. I can't say it. So we want to thank you all so very much for joining another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. And thanks for joining our Week 14's 2-point conversation. Don't forget, you can find our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. And if you're not sure if you want to watch or listen, go ahead and head to our website at wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. And if you want to look at these beautiful faces, see our audio and visual graphics in real time, go to our YouTube page at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. When you head over there, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment, and we will get you into our next mailbag segment. With that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And contemplate this eternal question. Are we playing fantasy football, or is fantasy football playing us?
Oh, we are getting played every week. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.